Imagine yourself in the vast, arid landscapes of Peru. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples, a profound silence settles over the Supe Valley. It's a silence that feels ancient, sacred, as if the very sand and stones are holding their breath, waiting. For thousands of years, this desert kept a monumental secret, a story buried beneath its shifting dunes. It was a secret that would rewrite the history of the Americas. For centuries, travelers and locals saw them as nothing more than natural hills, strange formations in an otherwise flat valley. But in the 1990s, a team of archaeologists, led by the visionary Dr. Ruth Shady, began to look closer. They weren't just hills, they were pyramids. Beneath the sand lay not just a settlement, but a sprawling, complex city, one of the oldest in the entire Western Hemisphere. This was Caral. Welcome to a journey back in time, to a civilization that flourished over 5,000 years ago. To put that into perspective, the people of Caral were building their magnificent pyramids around the same time the Egyptians were constructing their own at Giza. They were creating complex societies, while Stonehenge was still in its early phases. Yet, for so long, their story remained unheard, a whisper from the deep past. Caral wasn't just a city. It was the heart of a civilization that stretched across the Supe Valley. It was a metropolis of grand public plazas, towering stone structures, and intricate residential complexes, all meticulously planned and executed. This wasn't a primitive settlement. This was a sophisticated society, a cradle of civilization that emerged in complete isolation, long before any other known complex society in the Americas. What makes Caral so astounding is not just its age, but what it represents. This ancient Peruvian culture developed without the wheel, without pottery for cooking, and seemingly without warfare. Their pyramids weren't tombs for kings, but ceremonial centers for the community. Their economy wasn't driven by conquest, but by agriculture and trade, exchanging cotton and fish with coastal and jungle communities. They were masters of astronomy, engineering, and music. Instruments made from condor and pelican bones have been found here, suggesting a rich cultural life filled with ceremony and celebration. The discovery of Caral completely upended our understanding of ancient American history. It proved that large-scale, complex societies could develop much earlier than previously thought, and that they could be founded on principles of cooperation and trade rather than conflict. Caral forces us to ask new questions. How did they organize such a large population? What beliefs guided their construction of these monumental structures? And perhaps, most mysteriously, why did they eventually abandon this magnificent city? The story of Caral is one of innovation, community, and a deep connection to the cosmos. It's a testament to human ingenuity thriving in one of the most challenging environments on Earth. The people of Caral learned to read the rhythms of the desert, the flow of the river, and the movements of the stars. They built a society that was in harmony with its surroundings, a model of sustainable living that has lessons for us even today. As archaeologists continue to peel back the layers of sand, each discovery reveals more about this enigmatic civilization. We find intricately woven textiles, complex record-keeping systems, known as quipu's knotted strings, that held a wealth of information and evidence of a society that valued art, science, and spiritual connection. The silent stones of Caral are beginning to speak, telling a story of a lost world that was far more advanced and peaceful than we could have ever imagined. This is just the beginning of our exploration. In this series, we will delve deeper into the mysteries of Caral. We'll walk through its sacred plazas, climb its ancient pyramids, and try to understand the minds of the people who built this incredible city. We will look at the groundbreaking archaeological work that brought this lost civilization to light and explore the theories about its sudden decline. Join us as we uncover the secrets of the Caral civilization, a whisper from the deep past that has now become a resounding voice in the story of human history. The sands of Peru have given up their greatest treasure, and its tale is one that deserves to be told. It's a story not just about ancient Peru, but about the very origins of civilization itself. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our journey to the heart of Caral. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of ancient Peru. Today, we venture into Chapter 2. The Supe Valley, a land of rivers, fog, and memories that stretch back thousands of years. This is the cradle of the North Chico civilization. And to understand its people, we must first understand the land that shaped them. Picture this: a narrow, fertile valley carved through a desert landscape by the life-giving Supe River. This river, born in the high Andes, snakes its way westward, carrying precious water and rich sediments toward the Pacific Ocean. It's not a mighty river like the Amazon, but here, in one of the driest places on Earth, it is everything. For the ancient people who first settled here over 5,000 years ago, the Supe River was the pulse of their world, the source of all life and prosperity. It was their highway, their farm, their sanctuary. But the river is only part of the story. Look closer, and you'll notice another key element: the fog. Etchmorn, a thick, coastal mist, known locally as the Gara, rolls in from the Pacific. It blankets the valley, clinging to the hillsides and drenching the landscape in a soft, ethereal light. This isn't just a picturesque scene. It's a vital source of moisture. The Gara waters the lomas, unique fog-fed ecosystems on the coastal hills, creating pockets of vegetation in an otherwise barren desert. This natural irrigation system, combined with the river's flow, created a microclimate that was remarkably mild and stable year-round. No harsh winters, no scorching summers. This gentle climate meant that life wasn't a constant struggle for survival. It was a place where people could not just exist, but thrive. These unique environmental conditions were the foundation for one of humanity's earliest agricultural revolutions in the Americas. The soil, enriched by millennia of river deposits, was incredibly fertile. The ancient farmers of the Supe Valley weren't just lucky. They were brilliant innovators. They learned to read the rhythms of the river and the fog. They engineered complex irrigation canals, diverting water from the river to expand their farmlands deep into the desert. What did they grow? Not staples like maize, which would come much later, but something else that would define their economy: cotton. The Supe Valley's long, strong cotton fibers were highly prized. They were woven into durable fishing nets, textiles, and clothing, becoming the primary commodity for a vast trade network. Along with cotton, they cultivated gourds, which were used as containers and floats for their fishing nets. And they grew a variety of nutritious plants, like beans, squash, and sweet potatoes in their sunken gardens, ingenious agricultural plots that tapped into the high water table. This combination of marine resources from the nearby coast and a sophisticated agricultural system in the valley created a perfectly balanced and resilient economy. They had the protein from the sea and the carbohydrates and industrial crops from the land. This synergy between the ocean and the valley was the engine that powered the rise of the first cities in the Americas. So, let's take a moment and just imagine standing here 5,000 years ago. The sun is just beginning to burn through the morning fog, casting long shadows across the valley floor. The air is cool and damp, filled with the scent of wet earth and distant salt from the sea. You hear the gentle murmur of the Supe River, the rustle of cotton plants in the breeze, and the distant sounds of people at work, their voices echoing softly in the tranquil air. This isn't a dramatic, harsh landscape. It's a place of quiet abundance, a peaceful sanctuary protected by the desert and nourished by the river and the fog. It's in this serene and nurturing environment that the seeds of a great civilization were sown, a civilization that built monumental pyramids and developed a complex society, all without pottery, without defensive walls, and seemingly without warfare. The Supe Valley feels like a place outside of time, where the past is always present. The wind whispering through the ancient ruins seems to carry the echoes of its first inhabitants. The geological and environmental conditions here didn't just allow for settlement. They actively nurtured it. The valley was a haven, providing everything its people needed to transition from small, scattered groups into a large, organized society. The stability of the climate, the fertility of the soil, the bounty of the sea was a perfect recipe for civilization to emerge. As we explored the archaeological sites of Caral and the surrounding settlements in our upcoming episodes, remember this landscape. Remember the river, the fog, and the mild climate. Every pyramid, every plaza, Every artifact we uncover is a testament to the deep connection between the people of North Chico and this remarkable valley they called home. It was here, in this cradle of fog and water, that one of the world's first great civilizations began its journey, leaving behind a legacy that continues to mystify and inspire us to this day. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the Supe Valley. The story is just beginning. Make sure you resubscribed and have notifications turned on, because next, we're stepping into the incredible city of Caral itself. You won't want to miss it. See you next time. Welcome back to our series on the lost civilizations of the Americas. Today, in Chapter 3, we journey to Peru to uncover the story of the first city builders of the New World. We're talking about a civilization so ancient, it rewrites the very timeline of urban history, the North Chico, and their magnificent capital, the sacred city of Caral. Imagine a time 5,000 years ago. In Egypt, people were beginning to build the first great pyramids. In Mesopotamia, Sumerian city-states like Uruk were flourishing. For decades, archaeologists believed that complex societies in the Americas developed much, much later. The Olmec, the Maya, the Chavin. These were thought to be the trailblazers. But then, in the 1990s, a team led by Peruvian archaeologist Ruth Shady began excavating a mysterious site in the Supe Valley, about 120 miles north of modern-day Lima. What she found there would send shockwaves through the academic world. The site was Caral, and as radiocarbon dating results came in, an astonishing truth was revealed. Caral was not just a few centuries old. It was built around 2600 BC. This meant it was a contemporary of the Egyptian Old Kingdom and the Sumerian city. Suddenly, the Americas had a seat at the table of the world's first civilizations. This discovery shattered the long-held belief that large-scale urban development in the Western Hemisphere was a relatively recent phenomenon. It was like finding a lost chapter of human history, one that proved complex societies could arise independently, in parallel, across the globe. The academic world was stunned. The entire timeline for American prehistory had to be pushed back by more than 1,000 years. Caral wasn't a follower, it was a founder. So how did this remarkable city come to be? Caral didn't just spring up overnight. Its story begins much earlier, around 3500 BC, with small, scattered settlements of farmers and fishermen along the coast and in the fertile Supe Valley. These early communities were simple, living in small huts made of reeds and mud. They cultivated crops like squash, beans, and most importantly, cotton. The coastal groups harvested the rich bounty of the Pacific Ocean, anchovies, sardines, and shellfish. For centuries, this was their way of life, small, self-sufficient villages. But then, something started to change. A new level of organization began to emerge. These scattered settlements started to cooperate, creating a complex network of trade and exchange. The coastal fishermen would trade their dried fish and shellfish with the inland farmers, who provided cotton and gourds. This wasn't just simple bartering, it was the foundation of a regional economy. The cotton was particularly valuable. It was used to make not just clothing but also, crucially, fishing nets. Stronger, larger nets meant bigger catches, which meant more food, which supported a larger population. This simple, yet ingenious, economic loop created a surplus of resources and fueled a cycle of growth. As the population grew, so did the need for social organization and leadership. Around 2600 BC, this process of social evolution reached its peak with the construction of Caral. It wasn't just a bigger village. It was a meticulously planned urban center. It wasn't built by conquest or for defense. There are no walls, no weapons, no signs of warfare found at the site. Instead, Caral seems to have been built through collective will, a monument to collaboration and shared belief. The city itself is an architectural marvel, spread across more than 150 acres. It's dominated by 6 large flat-topped pyramids. The largest, known as the Pyramid Mare, stands nearly 60 feet high and covers an area the size of 4 football fields. These were not tombs like the Egyptian pyramids, but public structures with grand staircases leading up to ceremonial rooms and open plazas at the top. Imagine ancient ceremonies taking place on these platforms, with leaders addressing crowds gathered in the massive sunken circular plazas below. They see plazas, some as large as 130 feet in diameter, were the heart of public life in Caral. The construction of these monuments required immense labor and sophisticated engineering. The builders used woven red bags called chakras to carry stones from the riverbed up to the construction sites. Archaeologists have found these chakras, still filled with stones, inside the pyramids. This technique not only helped with transport, but also made the structures remarkably resistant to earthquakes, a common threat in the region. The sheer scale of Caral's architecture tells us that its leaders could command a vast workforce, mobilizing thousands of people from across the Supe Valley. This wasn't a society of equals anymore. A clear social hierarchy had developed. But who were these leaders? They weren't warrior kings. They were more likely a priestly class, whose power was based on knowledge, religion, and their ability to manage the economy. They understood astronomy, predicting seasonal changes that were vital for farming and fishing. They organized the trade network, ensuring the flow of goods between the coast and the inland valleys, and they presided over the religious ceremonies that brought the community together. Their authority came from their ability to maintain cosmic and social order. Life in Caral was surprisingly sophisticated. Alongside the Grand Pyramids, archaeologists have found the remains of elite residences, workshops, and common houses. They discovered musical instruments, including flutes made from condor and pelican bones, suggesting that music played a key role in their rituals. Perhaps the most intriguing find is the quipu. A quipu is a recording device made of knotted strings, famously used by the later Inca Empire to keep records. The discovery of a quipu at Caral suggests that this complex system of information storage was invented nearly 3,000 years before the Inca. It's a stunning testament to their intellectual achievements. So what does Caral tell us? It proves that a complex, urban society could develop without three things long considered essential: pottery, metalworking, and warfare. The people of Caral built a metropolis based on agriculture, maritime trade, and a shared ideology. They chose cooperation over conflict and construction over destruction. Caral represents a different model of civilization, a peaceful blueprint for how to build a city and a society. After thriving for nearly 1,000 years, Caral and the other North Chico settlements were abandoned around 1800 BC. The reasons are still debated, but climate change seems to be a likely culprit. A prolonged drought or a series of powerful El Niño events could have disrupted the delicate balance of their maritime and agricultural economy, leading the people to disperse and seek new ways of life elsewhere. But the legacy of Caral lived on. It set the stage for all the great Andean civilizations that would follow, from the Chavin to the Mocha, and ultimately to the Inca. Caral was the mother city, the first light of urbanism in the Americas, a forgotten genesis that we are only now beginning to fully understand. Its silent pyramids and empty plazas stand as a powerful reminder that there are many paths to civilization, and some of the most ancient and inspiring stories are still waiting to be unearthed. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. In our next chapter, we'll travel north to uncover the mysteries of another foundational culture. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of ancient Peru. Today, we're stepping into the sprawling metropolis of Caral, a city that tells its story not through words, but through stone. This isn't just a collection of old buildings, it's a masterpiece of urban design, meticulously planned over 5,000 years ago. Let us take a walk through its streets and discover how its layout reveals the very soul of its civilization. As we enter Caral, the first thing that strikes you is the sheer scale and order. The city is divided into two main sectors: an upper, central zone and a lower, peripheral zone. This layout wasn't accidental. It was a physical representation of Caral's social structure. The elite, the priests, and the administrators lived and worked in the upper sector, surrounded by the most impressive monumental architecture. Let's begin our tour here, in the heart of power. Dominating the skyline are the Great Pyramids. There are 6 of them, each one a testament to incredible engineering and community effort. The largest, the Pyramid Mayor, or Great Pyramid, stands over 60 feet tall and stretches nearly 500 feet long. Imagine the sight it must have been, gleaming under the Andean sun. These weren't just tombs like in Egypt. They were vibrant centers of community life. They housed temples, administrative offices, and residential quarters for the city's leaders. Each pyramid is strategically placed, fronted by a vast open space of plaza. These plazas were the city's lungs, the gathering places for thousands of people. Here, markets would have buzzed with activity, and grand public ceremonies would have unfolded. It was in these plazas that the leaders of Caral connected with their people, reinforcing social bonds and demonstrating their authority. Now, look closely at the base of each major pyramid. You'll notice a distinct and enigmatic feature. The sunken circular court. These are beautiful, precisely constructed amphitheater-like structures, typically with two staircases leading down into them from opposite sides. What was their purpose? Archaeologists believe these were sacred ceremonial spaces, or what? Imagine priests descending into the circular court, perhaps lighting a sacred fire at its center, with the community gathered around the edge, looking down. The acoustics in these courts are remarkable, suggesting that music and chanting were central to their rituals. The discovery of flutes made from condor and pelican bones, right here in Caral, supports this idea. These courts were intimate stages for the city's most important religious rites. The entire layout of Caral is a lesson in cosmic alignment. The positioning of the pyramids and circular courts wasn't random. It was deeply connected to the sky. The main ceremonial axis of the city aligns with specific astronomical events, like the sol. This tells us that the people of Caral were keen astronomers. They used the sun, moon, and stars to mark time, plan their agricultural calendar, and schedule their religious festivals. Their city was a mirror of the cosmos, a sacred landscape where earthly life was in constant dialogue with the heavens. This astronomical knowledge was also a powerful tool of governance. By predicting celestial events, the priestly elite could demonstrate their unique connection to the gods. This ability to control time and seasons would have legitimized their rule and ensured the cooperation of the general populace. The architecture, therefore, wasn't just for shelter or show. It was an instrument of social and political control, reinforcing the hierarchy that was so clearly visible in the city's divided layout. Now, let's move from the central zone down to the lower sector. Here, the architecture changes. Instead of grand pyramids, we find smaller, more modest residential complexes, known as conjuntos residenciales. This is where the majority of the population lived: the farmers, the fishermen, the artisans. These housing areas were also highly organized, consisting of clusters of small rooms built with wattle and daub techniques, using interwoven reeds plastered with clay. Even here, in the everyday residential areas, we see evidence of a planned community. The complexes are arranged in distinct blocks, suggesting a system of social organization, perhaps based on kinship or craft specialization. For instance, archaeologists have found evidence that suggests certain areas were dedicated to textile production, with high concentrations of cotton seeds and weaving tools. This urban zoning shows a level of administrative sophistication that is simply astounding for its time. The city was a self-sufficient and integrated system. The people in the lower sector produced the food and goods that sustained the entire population, while the elite in the upper sector provided the organizational, religious, and political leadership. The very design of the city, from the towering pyramids to the humble workshops, facilitated this symbiotic relationship. The plazas acted as the connecting tissue, bringing everyone together for trade, celebration, and worship. What makes Caral's urban planning so revolutionary is its emphasis on public and ceremonial space over defensive structures. Unlike many ancient cities, Caral has no walls, no fortifications. Its power wasn't projected through military might, but through culture, religion, and trade. The open, inviting layout of the plazas and the monumental scale of the pyramids were designed to inspire awe and foster a sense of shared identity, not to intimidate or repel invaders. This suggests a long period of peace and stability in the Supe Valley, allowing this unique model of a peaceful ceremonial city to flourish. In essence, walking through Caral is like reading a blueprint for an entire civilization. Every stone tells a story of social hierarchy, of deep religious belief, and of a profound connection to the cosmos. The pyramids declare the power of the elite. The sunken courts whisper tales of sacred rituals, and the plazas echo with the voices of a community brought together in ceremony and commerce. It's a city designed for connection to the gods, connection to the cosmos, and connection between people. The legacy of Caral's urban design is immense. It set a precedent for later Andean civilizations, who would adopt and adapt many of its architectural and planning principles. The dual division of space, the pyramid plaza complex, and the sunken circular courts became hallmarks of Andean urbanism for millennia to come. Thank you for joining me on this architectural tour of the sacred city of Caral. It is a place that reminds us that a city can be more than just buildings. It can be a reflection of a society as high as ideals and a map of its very soul. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll be uncovering the secrets of their incredible knowledge and technology. See you then. Welcome back to our journey through the cradle of Andean civilization. Today, in Chapter 5, we venture into the heart of Caral to explore its most iconic features. The 6 Great Pyramids, silent monuments to a life steeped in ritual and cosmic understanding. As the first light of dawn spills over the Supe Valley, it catches the ancient stones, illuminating a city that has been sleeping for millennia. Let's begin with the largest and most significant of these structures, the Pyramid Mayor, or Great Pyramid. Standing over 60 feet tall and stretching nearly 500 feet in length, it's a man-made mountain dominating the landscape. But unlike the Egyptian pyramids, which served as tombs, Caral's pyramids were vibrant centers of community life. They were built not to hide the dead, but to elevate the living closer to their gods. Imagine standing at its base thousands of years ago. You would see a wide, central staircase, a grand invitation ascending towards the sky. This wasn't just a way to get to the top. It was a ceremonial path. Priests, decorated in symbolic attire, would climb these steps, performing rituals that connected the earthly realm with the celestial one. The city's inhabitants would gather in the sunken circular plaza at its foot, looking up in awe as ceremonies unfolded. This architectural pairing of a pyramid and a plaza is a hallmark of Caral, a design that would be repeated across the Andes for the next 4,000 years. The construction of these pyramids is a marvel of ancient engineering. The people of Caral didn't have the wheel, and they hadn't yet developed metal tools for quarrying. So how did they build these colossal structures? The answer lies in a technique of brilliant simplicity and communal effort. They used woven reed bags called shik. Workers would gather stones from the nearby riverbed, fill these shikras, and carry them to the construction site. These shikra bags filled with stones formed the core of the pyramids. They were stacked in retaining walls, creating a stable, cellular structure. Then, layers of earth and loose rock were packed around them. This method was not only efficient, but also incredibly earthquake-resistant. The flexible shikra bags could absorb seismic shocks, allowing the structures to shift and settle without collapsing. Archaeologists have found thousands of these bags perfectly preserved within the pyramids, a testament to the ingenuity of Caral's builders. It's a form of seismic engineering, thousands of years ahead of its time. The exterior was then faced with cut stones, giving the pyramids their distinct, terraced appearance. Each terrace was a platform, and at the very top of the pyramid was a complex of rooms. This included an atrium, an altar with a central hearth for offerings, and smaller chambers. The hearth was the focal point. Here, evidence of burnt offerings, food, cotton seeds, and even valuable objects tells us that fire rituals were central to their spiritual practice. These were not just buildings. They were active stages for the community's relationship with the divine. Let's move on to some of the other key pyramids, as each one had its own unique character and purpose. The Piramide de la Galeria is named for its intricate underground gallery, a mysterious passageway whose exact function remains debated. Was it for secret priestly rites, storage of sacred objects, or perhaps an acoustic chamber designed to amplify ritual chants? Its careful construction suggests it was of immense importance. Then there is the Piramide de la Huanca. Adjacent to this pyramid stands a single, upright stone monolith, or huanca, which is aligned with a specific point on the horizon. This alignment suggests it was used as an astronomical observatory. From T-spot, the priests of Caral could track the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. They could predict solstices and equinoxes, crucial knowledge for timing their agricultural cycles and religious festivals. This pyramid was the city's clock and calendar, carved in stone. The Pirámide Menor or Lesser Pyramid, and the Pirámide de la Cantera, the Quarry Pyramid, also played their parts. While smaller, their construction followed the same principles, showing a standardized and well-organized plan for the entire city. The layout of Cairo wasn't random. It was a deliberate, cosmic map. The pyramids were arranged to mirror constellations or align with celestial events, turning the entire city into a sacred landscape. As we walk among these structures today, the silence is profound. The wind whispers through the empty plazas and across the weathered stone steps, but it's a silence filled with echoes. You can almost hear the rhythmic chanting of rituals, the music of flutes carved from condor bones, and the collective murmur of a crowd gathered to witness a sacred ceremony. The pyramids of Caral are not just piles of rock and earth. They are the physical embodiment of a society's worldview. They tell a story of immense social organization, where thousands of people work together towards a common goal. Building these pyramids required a sophisticated system of labor, resource management, and a shared belief system that united everyone from the farmer in the field to the priest on the summit. These structures represent a peaceful, monumental effort focused on ceremony and astronomy, not warfare. There are no defensive walls in Cairo, no signs of battle. The city's energy was poured into understanding the cosmos and living in harmony with it. The pyramids were symbols of this harmony connecting the underworld, the earth, and the heavens. As the sun sets over the Supe Valley, casting long shadows from the pyramids, we are left to ponder the legacy of this ancient metropolis. The people of Cairo built for eternity, and their message, encoded in stone and earth, speaks to us across 5,000 years. It's a message of innovation, community, and a deep spiritual connection to the world around them. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the pyramids of Cairo. Their silent majesty is a powerful reminder of the incredible achievements of the ancient Americas. If you're enjoying this series, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We have so much more to explore together. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of the ancient world. In this chapter, we step inside the Great Pyramid, not just as a tomb, but as a vibrant center of ceremony and ritual. The pyramid wasn't just a resting place for a king. It was a cosmic engine, a place where the earthly and the divine met. The discoveries made deep within its chambers paint a picture of a civilization deeply connected to ritual, symbolism, and the cosmos. Let's peel back the layers and discover the ceremonial heart of this magnificent structure. What did the ancient builders leave behind? It's a question that has captivated archaeologists for centuries. Inside the pyramid, and in related temples, we don't just find stone and dust. We find the echoes of ancient ceremonies in the form of offerings. Imagine intricate, artistic depictions showing processions of people carrying precious items. Among the most common are shells, particularly spondylus shells. These weren't native to the highlands. They were brought from the distant coastal waters of Ecuador, hundreds of miles away. Why go to such lengths? These vibrant red and orange shells were more valuable than gold. They represented water, fertility, and life itself. Finding them here tells us that the pyramid was a focal point for offerings that connected the entire region, from the mountains to the sea. It was a place where the life-giving power of the ocean was brought to the heart of the empire. But the offerings weren't just about shells. Archaeologists have uncovered stunning imagery of musical instruments. We see depictions of panpipes, drums, and trumpets. Can you imagine the sounds that once filled these sacred spaces? The rhythmic beat of a drum, the haunting melody of a flute. Music wasn't just entertainment. It was a vital part of the ritual. It was a way to alter consciousness, to communicate with the gods, and to guide the souls of the deceased on their journey to the afterlife. The presence of these instruments, even just in artistic form, tells us that the pyramid complex was alive with sound. The ceremonies here were multi-sensory experiences designed to transport participants to another realm. It wasn't a silent, somber place, but one filled with the energy of music and chanting. Then there are the mysterious bundles. In many of the carved reliefs and murals, we see figures carrying carefully wrapped packages. What's inside them? This is one of the great puzzles. Some scholars believe they contained sacred relics, perhaps objects belonging to the revered ancestor or king. Others suggest they held powerful ritual ingredients, special herbs, minerals, or even textiles, which were incredibly valuable. These bundles were treated with immense respect, always carried with care and presented as the most precious of gifts. Their exact contents may be lost to time, but their purpose is clear. They were concentrated packets of spiritual power, offerings meant to fuel the pyramid's cosmic function and honor the divine beings it was built to serve. They represent the secrets and the sacred knowledge of a civilization, wrapped up and offered to the gods. Now, let's talk about the main temple, often associated with the pyramid. This wasn't just an aid, it was the public face of the sacred mountain. This is where the most important ceremonies took place, accessible to priests and select members of the elite. And at the heart of these ceremonies was one powerful element: fire. Excavations in these temples have revealed ceremonial hearths, pits still blackened by ancient flames and filled with the ashes of offerings. Fire was a transformative element. It could turn a solid offering into smoke that carried prayers up to the heavens. It represented cleansing, power, and a direct connection to the sun god, a primary deity for many pyramid-building cultures. These fire rituals were likely performed at key moments in the agricultural and astronomical calendar, reinforcing the ruler's role as the community's intermediary with the gods. The temple wasn't just a place for fire rituals, though it was also an observatory. The very alignment of the temple and the pyramid itself was often precisely calculated to track cosmic events. The doorways and windows were designed to frame the rising and setting of the sun, moon, and specific stars on important dates, like the solstices and equinoxes. Imagine a priest standing in the temple's central chamber, watching as a beam of sunlight slowly illuminates a sacred symbol on the wall, signaling the start of a new season or the time for a crucial ceremony. This connection to the cosmos was fundamental. The pyramid complex was a giant clock and calendar, written in stone. It synchronized human life with the rhythms of the universe, ensuring that rituals were performed at the most potent moments. The fire rituals on the ground mirrored the fiery sun in the sky. So, when we look at the Great Pyramid, we need to see beyond the stone. We need to envision the processions of people carrying precious shells from the sea. We must hear the faint echoes of panpipes and drums that once filled the air. We should imagine the smoke from sacred fires rising towards the heavens, carrying the hopes and prayers of a nation. The pyramid was not a dead monument. It was a living, breathing heart of ceremony. It was a place where art, music, science, and religion all came together in a grand symphony designed to maintain balance in the world. It connected the people to their leaders, their ancestors, and the vast, awe-inspiring cosmos. The offerings left behind are the tangible proof of this deep spiritual life. The shells, the instruments, and the mysterious bundles tell a story of devotion and connection. The fire hearths and astronomical alignments reveal a sophisticated understanding of the universe and a desire to live in harmony with it. The Great Pyramid was the stage for this incredible drama. It was where the human world and the divine world met, where time was measured not just in days and years, but in cosmic cycles. It stands today as a silent testament to a civilization that saw the sacred in everything, from a humble shell to a distant star. It was truly the heart of their world. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the ceremonial life of the Great Pyramid. The story is far from over, and there are still so many secrets waiting to be uncovered. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. Until next time, stay curious. Imagine a civilization that thrived for 1,000 years without a single war. No swords, no shields, no city walls. Sounds like a fantasy, right? Well, it wasn't. Welcome to Caral, the oldest city in the Americas, a place that rewrites everything we thought we knew about human history. For centuries, we've been taught that conflict is a fundamental part of human society. We build walls, we forge weapons, we fight for resources. But what if there was another way? Deep in the Supe Valley of Peru, archaeologists uncovered a breathtaking mystery. The remains of a vast, complex society that existed over 5,000 years ago. around the same time as the Great Pyramids of Egypt. This was the North Chico civilization, and its capital was the magnificent city of Caral. When researchers first began excavating Cairo, they were looking for the usual signs of an ancient metropolis: fortifications, weapons, and evidence of battles. They found none. There were no defensive walls surrounding the city, no watchtowers, no caches of clubs or spears. They found no mutilated bodies, no settlements burned to the ground. For over a millennium, from roughly 3000 to 1800 BCE, the people of Caral lived in peace. This discovery was revolutionary. It challenged the long-held assumption that large-scale societies could only be forged and maintained through conquests and military power. Caral presented a completely different model, one based not on coercion, but on cooperation. So, if they weren't fighting, what were they doing? And how did they manage to build such a sophisticated society that lasted for 1,000 years? The answer lies in the very fabric of their culture. The people of Caral were master traders and diplomats. Their city wasn't a fortress. It was a vibrant commercial hub. Archaeologists have found goods from far and wide. Cotton, which they grew in abundance in the fertile river valley, was their white gold. They traded it with coastal communities for fish and shellfish, essential sources of protein. They also traded with people from the Amazon jungle for exotic feathers and medicinal plants, and with highland communities for precious stones. Their economy was a complex web of interdependence, where trading partners were more valuable, alive, and prosperous than conquered and subjugated. Peace was simply good for business. But trade alone doesn't explain the stability of Caral. Another key element was religion and ritual. The city is dominated by immense monumental structures. 6 large platform mounds, often called pyramids, with circular plazas and grand staircases. These weren't palaces for kings or military barracks. They were ceremonial centers. These were the stages for powerful, unifying rituals that brought the entire community together. Imagine the scene. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people gathered in a sunken circular plaza. The sound of flutes made from condor and pelican bones echoing off the stone walls. Priests, acting as intermediaries between the people and the gods, would lead ceremonies tied to the agricultural calendar and astronomical events. They likely used their knowledge of the stars to predict seasonal changes, ensuring successful harvests. This religious authority, based on knowledge and spiritual leadership, created a powerful social glue. People weren't ruled by fear of a king's army, but by a shared belief system and a respect for the cosmic order. Inside these ceremonial buildings, archaeologists found fascinating clues about their rituals. They discovered quipus, complex knotted strings that were likely used for record keeping and communication, a form of 3-dimensional writing. They also found small, unfired clay figurines, often depicted in specific ritual poses, which may have been used as offerings. One of the most significant finds was a collection of 32 flutes, exquisitely crafted from animal bones, buried as a special offering. Music was clearly central to their spiritual life, a way to connect with each other and the divine. This focus on shared ceremony and economy created a society built on reciprocity instead of competing for power. Different groups and settlements across the Supe Valley likely contributed labor and resources for large-scale projects, like building the pyramids or maintaining the intricate irrigation canals that watered their crops. This cooperative effort, known as Ani in later Andean cultures, fostered a sense of collective identity and mutual obligation. It was a system where everyone benefited from working together. The pyramids themselves are a testament to this, built with woven bags filled with stones, a technique that required massive, organized labor forces. So why did this peaceful society eventually decline? Around 1800 BCE, evidence suggests that major climate change, possibly a severe drought or a series of strong El Niño events, disrupted their delicate agricultural and trade networks. The basis of their prosperity, the fertile valley, and the rich marine life, was threatened. Without the resources to support its large population and complex social structure, the city of Caral was gradually abandoned. The people didn't vanish in a great war. They likely dispersed into smaller, more sustainable settlements, adapting to a changing world. The legacy of Caral is profound. It shows us that war is not an inevitable part of human civilization. It proves that, for 1,000 years, a large-scale society flourished based on trade, cooperation, and shared beliefs. They built pyramids, not fortresses. They crafted flutes, not swords. They created a complex social and economic network based on mutual benefit, not military might. Cairo is more than just an ancient ruin. It's a blueprint for a different kind of world. It reminds us that our capacity for cooperation is just as ancient and just as powerful as our capacity for conflict. It challenges us to look at our own societies and ask, what are we building? Are we building walls to keep people out? Or are we building bridges to bring people together? The peaceful people of Cairo made their choice 5,000 years ago, and their silent pyramids in the Peruvian desert still speak volumes today. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey back in time as fascinating as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our next exploration into the mysteries of the past. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world. Today, we redive in deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious artifacts of early civilizations, the quipu. Imagine a world without writing as we know it, no letters, no alphabet, no paper. How would you keep records? How would you track harvests, manage trade, or communicate complex information across vast distances? The people of the ancient city of Caral, driven over 5,000 years ago in what is now Peru, had a brilliant solution. Let's travel back to the Supe Valley, to the monumental city of Caral. Archaeologists excavating this incredible site, one of the oldest cities in the Americas, uncovered something truly remarkable. It wasn't gold or elaborate pottery, but something far more intriguing. A collection of cotton strings, carefully twisted and knotted in a specific, deliberate pattern. This was a quipu. Now, you might have heard of quipus in the context of the much later Inca Empire, but the discovery at Caral pushes the timeline of this technology back by millennia. This wasn't just a random bundle of threads. This was a sophisticated tool for storing information. So, what exactly is a quipu? At its core, it's a system of knotted cords. Think of it like a three-dimensional spreadsheet. There's a main, thicker cord, and from it hang numerous smaller pendant cords. The real genius lies in the details. The type of knot used, the position of the knot on the cord, the color of the string itself, and even the direction the cord was plied all. These elements could represent different pieces of data. For example, a simple knot might represent the number 1, while a more complex, figure-eight knot could stand for 10. By combining these on a single string, you could represent any number you needed. It was a decimal system, encoded in fiber. But what were they counting? At Caral, this quipu was found alongside offerings like fiber bags filled with stones. This context is crucial. It suggests the quipu was likely used for accounting. The inhabitants of Caral were master farmers, cultivating cotton, gourds, beans, and other crops. They also managed extensive trade networks, exchanging their agricultural products for fish and shells from the coast. A system like the quipu would have been indispensable for managing this complex economy. Imagine a warehouse manager using a quipu to track how many bags of cotton were in storage, or a merchant recording a trade of 50 kilograms of beans for a certain amount of dried fish. It was the ancient equivalent of a ledger book, a database made of string. This specific quipu from Caral, often called the Caral-Quipu, is a tantalizing glimpse into the minds of these ancient people. While it's fragmented, its existence proves that the intellectual foundations of Andean civilization were being laid far earlier than previously thought. The people of Caral weren't just building massive pyramids. They were developing abstract systems for data management. This innovation was just as monumental as their architecture. It allowed for a level of social organization and economic planning that was simply not possible without a way to record and retrieve information reliably. It's how you manage a city, organize labor for constructing public works, and ensure that resources are distributed effectively. Now, here's where the story gets even more exciting. For a long time, scholars believed quipus were purely for numbers accounting, census, data, tribute records. This is known as the numerical theory. And for the most part, the evidence, especially from the later Inca period, strongly supports this. We have Spanish colonial accounts that describe Inca officials reading numerical data from quipus with incredible speed and accuracy. They were masters of this textile arithmetic, but the Caral discovery and other finds have fueled a fascinating debate. Could quipus have been more than just numbers? Some researchers propose a narrative theory. They argue that quipus might have also encoded stories, histories, laws, or even poems. In his view, the combination of colors, knots, and chord arrangements could have functioned as a form of true writing, a semiosiographic system, where symbols represent ideas or concepts directly, rather than sounds like our alphabet does. Think of it like a musical score, where different symbols tell a musician what note to play, how long to hold it, and how loudly to play it. Could a specific sequence of colored, knotted strings tell a story of a great flood, a royal lineage, or a myth about the creation of the world? This idea is incredibly compelling. If true, it would mean that people of ancient Peru had a unique form of three-dimensional literature. We might be looking at entire libraries of knotted strings, each one a silent repository of knowledge, just waiting for us to crack the code. The problem is, we haven't cracked it yet. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, which had a parallel text in a known language, we have no definitive key to translate a narrative keep. The meaning of the colors, the significance of the chord play, much of this knowledge was lost with the fall of the Inca Empire. The keepers of this knowledge, the Quipicumayokes, were specialists who spent their lives learning to create and interpret these string records. Their expertise was passed down through generations, but this oral tradition was tragically broken. So, where does the Caral-Supe fit in? Its age makes it a potential ancestor to the more complex Inca keep. It suggests that this system evolved over thousands of years. Perhaps it started as a simple accounting tool, as the Caral evidence seems to indicate, a way to count bags of cotton. Then, over centuries, as societies grew more complex, so did the quipu. New layers of meaning were added. Colors came to represent not just different items, but perhaps different social groups, regions, or even abstract concepts. The structure became more standardized, allowing for more complex information to be stored. Caral, therefore, might represent the very roots of this incredible Andean knowledge system. The intellectual leap from simply tying a knot to remember something, to creating a standardized, organized system of knots and chords for data storage, is immense. It's the birth of information technology in the Americas. The people of Caral weren't just organizing stone and earth to build their city. They were organizing data. This innovation laid the groundwork for the vast and powerful empires that would follow, culminating in the Inca, who managed a territory stretching for thousands of miles using these very same principles, refined over 3,000 years. The quipu of Caral challenges our very definition of writing and knowledge. It reminds us that literacy isn't limited to pen and paper. It can be woven into textiles, knotted in strings, and carried in the hands. It's a powerful symbol of human ingenuity and our universal drive to record our world, to count our blessings, and to tell our stories. The mystery of whether these strings hold only numbers or entire lost histories remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles in archaeology. And it all started right here in the ancient city of Caral, with a simple, elegant, and profoundly brilliant invention. Thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of ancient knowledge. What do you think? Were quipus just for accounting, or do they hold the key to a lost library of Andean stories? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our series on the incredible civilization of Caral. Today, in Chapter 9, we're digging into the engine that powered this ancient society. Its surprisingly complex and prosperous economy. How did a civilization flourish in the arid Supe Valley thousands of years ago? The answer lies in their ingenuity, their environment, and one very special plant. At the heart of Caral's economic power was cotton. But this wasn't just any cotton. The people of Caral cultivated a unique, naturally colored cotton, growing in shades of brown, beige, and even mauve. This vibrant, ready-to-use fiber was a game-changer. It eliminated the need for dyes, making their textiles highly valuable and sought after. This cotton wasn't just for clothing. It was the raw material for something even more critical to their economic success: fishing nets. Imagine this. You live in the dry, inland valley of Caral. A few miles away, along the Pacific coast, are thriving fishing villages. The ocean is teeming with live sardines, anchovies, and a wealth of other marine resources. These coastal communities have the fish, but they lack something essential for large-scale fishing: strong, durable nets. And that's where Caral's genius comes into play. The people of Caral became master producers of high-quality cotton fishing nets. These nets were a technological marvel for their time, allowing coastal fishers to dramatically increase their catch. Suddenly, they could bring in massive hauls of fish, far more than they needed for themselves. This created a surplus, and surplus is the foundation of trade. So, a powerful symbiotic relationship was born. The inland farmers of Caral supplied the coast with essential fishing technology. The nets. In return, the coastal fishers provided Caral with a steady, abundant source of protein. Dried sardines and anchovies, rich in nutrients, flowed from the coast up into the valley, ensuring the large population of Caral was well fed and healthy. This wasn't just simple bartering. It was a sophisticated, interregional economic system. Caral was the industrial center, and the coast was its food basket. But how did Caral manage to grow so much cotton in such a dry region? This is where their agricultural prowess truly shines. The Supe River was their lifeline, but its flow was seasonal. To overcome this, the Caral people engineered an impressive system of irrigation canals. They expertly diverted water from the river, channeling it to their fields and creating fertile plots of land, where before there was only arid soil. These canals were a testament to their advanced understanding of hydrology and engineering, allowing them to precisely manage their most precious resource: water. This irrigation system didn't just support cotton. The farmers of Caral cultivated a diverse range of crops. They grew squash, beans, lucuma, picay, and guava, adding variety and vital nutrients to their diet. They also grew gourds, which were incredibly versatile. They were used as bowls, containers, and even floats for their fishing nets, further showcasing their ability to use every part of their environment. This agricultural diversity created a resilient food system, one that wasn't dependent on a single crop. Archaeological evidence paints a vivid picture of this bustling economy. In the ruins of Caral, scientists have found the remains of fish and shellfish that could only have come from the coast. And in the coastal settlements, they've unearthed cotton and agricultural products that originated in the Supe Valley. The evidence is clear. A constant flow of goods moved between these regions. This trade network wasn't just about survival, it was about prosperity. The surplus generated by this system allowed Caral to grow and develop. It freed up a portion of the population to become specialists: architects, priests, astronomers, and artisans. This specialization is a hallmark of a complex society, and it was all fueled by the economic engine of cotton and fish. The great pyramids and ceremonial plazas of Caral weren't just built on stone and mud. They were built on a foundation of dried anchovies and cotton threads. This economic model was so successful that it sustained Caral for over 1,000 years. It was a system based on cooperation, innovation, and a deep understanding of their environment. They didn't conquer the coast, they collaborated with it. They didn't just exploit their land, they enhanced it with sophisticated farming techniques. The story of Caral's economy is a powerful lesson in sustainability and ingenuity. It shows how a society, through clever resource management and strategic trade, could create abundance in a challenging landscape. They understood that their greatest wealth wasn't gold or silver, but the synergy between the land, the sea, and the skilled hands of their people. They built a world not on conquest, but on connection. Join us next time as we explore the social structure and daily life of the people who called this amazing city home. What was it like to live in one of the world's first cities? We'll find out. Thanks for watching. And if you're enjoying this journey back in time, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey into the heart of ancient Peru. In our previous chapters, we've marveled at the monumental pyramids and complex society of the Caral civilization. But today, we reshifting our focus from the stones of their cities to the roads that connected them to a world far beyond their immediate horizon. We're exploring Chapter 10, the trade routes across ancient Peru. Prepare to see the Caral people in a whole new light, not just as builders, but as master traders who wove a complex web of exchange across some of the most challenging landscapes on Earth. 5,000 years ago, long before the Inca Empire, the people of the Supe Valley were already engaged in a sophisticated network of commerce. How do we know this? The evidence is buried right in the heart of their ancient city. Archaeologists excavating Caral have unearthed a treasure trove of goods that are not native to the Supe Valley. These aren't just random objects. They're clues, breadcrumbs, left on a trail that stretches for hundreds, if not thousands, of miles. This tells us that Caral wasn't an isolated civilization. It was a bustling hub, a central point in a vast system of ancient exchange that connected the Pacific coast, the high Andes, and perhaps even the fringes of the Amazon rainforest. Let's talk about what they found. Imagine archaeologists carefully brushing away layers of dust to reveal something completely unexpected. These vibrant, spiny oyster shells are beautiful, but more importantly, they are native to the warm equatorial waters off the coast of modern-day Ecuador, hundreds of miles to the north. Finding them in Caral is like finding a coconut in the Swiss Alps. These shells were highly prized in the ancient Andean world, often associated with water, fertility, and religious rituals. Their presence in Caral strongly suggests a regular, well-established maritime trade route along the Pacific coast. The Caral people were likely trading their own goods, such as dried fish and cotton, for these exotic treasures from the sea. But the trade routes didn't just run along the coast. They also scaled the mighty Andes Mountains. Excavations have revealed sodalite, a striking blue mineral. The nearest known source for high-quality sodalite is in the highlands of Bolivia, a staggering distance away. This raises incredible questions. How did these stones travel so far? It suggests long-distance caravans, with people and llamas traversing treacherous mountain passas to connect distant communities. They weren't just trading luxury items. This was a network for survival and cultural exchange. Along with sodalite, other materials from the highlands have been found, like certain types of stone used for making tools and beads. This two-way flow of goods created a bond between the coastal dwellers of Caral and the mountain communities of the Andes. The evidence continues to pile up. Take, for example, the discovery of gourds. While some gourds may have been grown locally, certain types found in Caral were used as containers and floats for fishing nets. Detailed analysis suggests that some of these gourds came from regions with different climates, again pointing to trade. These weren't just simple containers, they were vital technology. Imagine a fisherman in Caral relying on floats made from gourds that were grown and traded from a community deep in a fertile inland valley. This simple object tells a story of interdependence, where different groups specialized in producing certain goods and then exchanged them for things they could unproduce themselves. Another fascinating discovery is the presence of achiote seeds. These seeds produce a vibrant red-orange pigment used for body paint, textiles, and food coloring. Achiote trees typically grow in the humid, tropical climates of the Amazon basin, on the eastern side of the Andes. Finding these seeds in the arid Supe Valley is a powerful indicator of a trade network that crossed the entire continent. It paints a picture of Caral as a true continental crossroads. Products from the ocean, the mountains, and the jungle were all converging in this one remarkable city. The people of Caral weren't just passive recipients. They were the orchestrators, the middlemen who facilitated this incredible flow of goods and ideas. What were the Caral people trading in return for all these exotic items? Their primary exports were likely products of their unique environment. The Supe Valley was ideal for growing cotton. Caral produced vast quantities of high-quality cotton, which was woven into textiles and, crucially, into the massive fishing nets used by coastal communities. Archaeologists have found enormous, intricate cotton nets, a testament to their advanced textile technology. Another key export was dried fish, particularly anchovies. The nearby Pacific Ocean was incredibly rich in marine life. The Caral people developed sophisticated methods for drying and salting fish, creating a preserved, protein-rich food source that was easy to transport and highly valuable to inland communities who lacked direct access to the sea. So, let's piece this puzzle together. The Caral civilization, situated in a desert valley, built a thriving economy based on agriculture, fishing, and manufacturing. They leveraged their surplus of cotton and dried fish to establish trade relationships with people from vastly different regions. They traded with coastal communities to the north for prized spondylus shells. They traded with highland communities in the Andes for valuable minerals like sodalite and obsidian. And they even traded with people from the Amazon basin for things like Archaeology seeds and likely other jungle products like medicinal plants and colorful bird feathers. This trade network was the lifeblood of Caral. It wasn't just about economics. It was about knowledge, culture, and power. Through these exchanges, the Caral people learned about different environments, different technologies, and different belief systems. The presence of these foreign goods enhanced the prestige and authority of Caral's rulers, who likely controlled the trade routes and the distribution of these exotic items. The city of Caral became a cosmopolitan center, a place where people from diverse backgrounds could meet, trade, and share information. This ancient Peruvian exchange system demonstrates a level of social and economic organization that is truly breathtaking for its time. It was a network built not on conquest, but on cooperation and mutual benefit, laying the groundwork for the complex societies that would follow in the Andes. For millennia to come, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the trade networks of the Caral civilization. It's a story that transforms our understanding of this ancient superpower, revealing them as connectors and innovators who shaped the world around them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter, where we'll explore the intricate belief systems and religious practices of the Caral people. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the mists of time. Today, we're re-stepping into a world where sound itself was a sacred bridge between the earthly and the divine. We're in Chapter 11, Music of the Ancients. Imagine a city, 5,000 years old, nestled in the arid Supe Valley of Peru. This is Caral, the oldest city in the Americas, a place of immense pyramids, circular plazas, and a profound, lingering silence. But it wasn't always silent. The people of Caral were master musicians, and the evidence they left behind is nothing short of breathtaking. Archaeologists uncovered a stunning collection here. 32 flutes, exquisitely crafted and laid together as a deliberate offering. But what makes them truly extraordinary is what they're made from. These aren't wood or clay. These are the bones of giants. The hollow, powerful wing bones of the Andean condor, the king of the skies, and the elegant bones of the coastal pelican. Think about that for a moment. To create music, they chose the very essence of the creatures that connected the land, the sea, and the heavens. Each flute is a masterpiece. Some are long, some are short, carved with intricate designs, figures of monkeys, birds, and faces with what looked like tears streaming down their cheeks. These weren't just instruments. They were artifacts imbued with meaning, each one telling a story, each one holding a spirit. Holding one, you can almost feel the presence of the artisan who shaped it, the musician who breathed life into it, and the condor whose flight it once enabled. What did this music sound like? By studying the flutes, researchers have been able to reconstruct the musical scales of ancient Caral. It wasn't the simple pentatonic scale you might expect. No, their system was complex, with 7 distinct notes, just like our modern Western scale. This reveals a highly sophisticated understanding of acoustics and harmony. Thousands of years before the Greeks were writing down their theories, they could play in concert, combining different flutes to create rich, layered melodies. A full orchestra of bone flutes echoing across the plazas. But the flutes were just one part of their sonic world. Alongside them, excavators found horns made from the bones of deer and llamas. These would have produced deeper, more resonant tones, a powerful bass line to the flute's soaring melodies. Picture it. The high bird-like calls of the condor flutes, interwoven with the deep, earthy blasts of the horns. It must have been an incredible sound, a symphony of the natural world, channeled through human ingenuity. So, why was music so important to the people of Caral? The clues lie in where these instruments were found. They weren't scattered randomly in homes. They were discovered ceremonially buried in the great temples and circular plazas, the heart of the city's spiritual life. This tells us that music wasn't just entertainment. It was a vital component of ritual. It was the language of their ceremonies, the vehicle for their prayers. Let's close our eyes and drift back. The sun has set over the Supe Valley, and the desert air grows cool. A blanket of stars, clearer and brighter than any we know today, stretches from horizon to horizon. In the center of the main plaza, a great fire dances, casting long, flickering shadows against the monumental pyramids. The people of Caral gather, their faces illuminated by the orange glow. And then, the music begins. A single flute pierces the night, a high, clear note that seems to hang in the air, a call to the spirits of the sky. Another joins, then another, their melodies weaving together, rising and falling like the breath of the desert itself. The deep, mournful sound of the horns answers from the base of the temple, a vibration you feel in your chest, grounding the music to the earth. This isn't a concert. This is a communion. The music is a tool to alter consciousness, to open a doorway to the sacred realm. The sounds of the condor and the pelican are meant to carry their intentions, their hopes, their gratitude, to the gods who inhabit the sky and the sea. The rhythm, perhaps matched by the stamping of feet or the clapping of hands, unifies the community, binding them together in a shared, transcendent experience. Were they celebrating a harvest? Honoring the ancestors? Marking the passage of the seasons by observing the stars? We can only speculate, but what we know for sure is that sound was at the core of their worldview. For the people of Caral, music wasn't just an art form. It was a fundamental force of nature, as essential as water, as powerful as fire. It was the way they made sense of the cosmos and their place within it. It was how they spoke to their gods, and perhaps how the gods spoke back. The discovery of these instruments fundamentally changes our understanding of early civilizations in the Americas. It shows us a society that valued not just monumental architecture and agriculture, but also the intangible, ephemeral beauty of sound. They understood that a community is built not only with stones and mud brick, but with shared songs, shared rhythms, and shared moments of awe under a starlit sky. The music of Caral may have faded into silence 5,000 years ago, but its echo remains, preserved in these incredible bone flutes. They are a testament to a time when humanity's relationship with the world was sung, not just spoken. A reminder that sometimes the most profound messages are not written in stone, but carried on the wind. Thank you for joining me on this sonic journey back to the dawn of civilization. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next step into the past. See you next time. Welcome back to our journey through the enigmatic city of Caral. In our last chapter, we marveled at its monumental architecture. But who built these incredible structures? Who lived within these walls? Today, we're delving into Chapter 12. Leaders, priests, and planners to uncover the social fabric of this ancient civilization. How was a society of this scale, one of the oldest in the Americas, organized over 5,000 years ago? The answer is as fascinating as the pyramids themselves. Unlike many ancient empires that were forged in conflict and ruled by warrior kings, Caral tells a different story. Here, power didn't come from the edge of a sword or the might of an army. Instead, it was woven from starlight, ritual, and a profound understanding of the cosmos. The leaders of Caral were not generals. They were priest astronomers, scholars of the natural world. Imagine a society where your status was determined not by your wealth or your fighting prowess, but by your knowledge. The elite of Caral were those who could read the heavens. They understood the changing seasons, predicted the cycles of the sun and moon, and knew the precise moments for planting and harvesting. This was not just abstract knowledge. It was the key to survival and prosperity for everyone in the Supe Valley. These leaders held sway through what we might call soft power. Their authority was based on their ability to organize communal life around a shared calendar of rituals and agricultural activities. They were the keepers of divine knowledge, the intermediaries between the earthly realm and the powerful forces of the cosmos. People followed them not out of fear, but because these leaders provided order, stability, and a sense of purpose in a world governed by the rhythms of nature. This cosmic knowledge was visibly embedded in their architecture. The pyramids, the plazas, The monoliths. They weren't just impressive buildings. They were astronomical observatories, massive clocks, and sacred stages. Their alignment with celestial bodies, like the solstices, demonstrated the leader's connection to the universe. When the sun rose perfectly over a specific monolith on the shortest day of the year, it was a powerful, tangible display of the leader's wisdom and legitimacy. It was a sign that they were in tune with the gods and could guarantee the continued balance of the world. So, who made up the rest of this society? Below the priestly elite, Caral was a bustling, stratified city. There were specialized groups of laborers, the skilled hands who physically built the pyramids. Think of the immense coordination required. Quarrying millions of stones, weaving countless shikra bags to carry them, and meticulously assembling these massive structures without the wheel or draft animals. This points to a class of engineers and project managers who translated the priests' cosmic designs into physical reality. Then we have the artisans. Excavations have uncovered exquisite artifacts not of gold or silver, which were not valued in the same way as in later Andean cultures, but of bone, stone, and shell. We find intricately carved flutes made from condor and pelican bones, suggesting a class of musicians who played a vital role in ritual ceremonies. There were also skilled textile makers, weaving cotton into nets, bags, and clothing, a crucial industry for both daily life and trade. These were not just laborers, they were specialists, respected for their craft and essential to the cultural and economic life of the city. Further out, in the fertile river valley, were the farmers. They were the foundation of Caral's society, cultivating cotton, gourds, beans, and sweet potatoes. Their surplus is what fed the city's builders, artisans, and priests. It was this agricultural abundance, managed and directed by the astronomical knowledge of the elite, that allowed Caral to flourish. The relationship was symbiotic. The farmers provided the food, and the priests provided the calendar and celestial guidance that ensured successful harvests. What's truly remarkable is how this complex social structure was held together without evidence of warfare. There are no fortifications, no weapons of war, no depictions of battles or captive prisoners that are so common in other ancient cultures. The social glue was not military might, but shared belief and mutual benefit. The grand rituals performed in the circular plazas were community-wide events. They brought everyone together, from the highest priests to the humble farmer, reinforcing their collective identity and their place within the cosmic order. These ceremonies were likely multi-sensory experiences. Imagine the air filled with the haunting melodies of bone flutes, the scent of burning offerings, and the sight of costumed priests performing on the high platforms of the pyramids. For the average person, this would have been a profoundly moving experience, a visible confirmation that they were part of something large, sacred, and divinely ordered. It was this shared ritual life, orchestrated by the priestly elite, that maintained social cohesion for centuries. This model of governance, based on ritual and astronomical knowledge, created a long period of peace and development, allowing Caral to become a beacon of civilization in the Americas. It wasn't a society of kings and soldiers, but one of planners, priests, and collaborators. This unique form of social organization is one of Caral's most important legacies, a testament to a different path of building a complex society. Join us next time as we explore Chapter 13, The Economy of the Sacred City, where we'll unravel the vast trade networks that connected Caral to the Andes and the Amazon, trading cotton and knowledge across incredible distances. It's a story you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching. And if you're enjoying this deep dive into the world of Caral, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter. See you then. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and wondered how ancient civilizations read the stars? Today, we're journeying back 5,000 years to the sacred city of Caral in Peru, a place where the cosmos was not just a source of wonder, but the very foundation of life. This is Chapter 13 of Orsidius Astronomy and Calendar Systems. Imagine standing in the vast, arid landscape of the Supe Valley. All around you are monumental pyramids and sunken circular plazas. These aren't just random structures. They are giant cosmic clocks, built with incredible precision. The people of Caral, long before the Incas, were master astronomers. They designed their entire city to align with the heavens. Let's start with the most dramatic celestial events, the solstices. These are the longest and shortest days of the year, marking the turning points of the seasons. Evidence suggests that the main pyramids and plazas of Caral are deliberately oriented to frame the rising and setting sun on these crucial dates. For example, from a specific vantage point within a circular plaza, a priest could watch the sun appear perfectly in a notch between two pyramids on the winter solstice. This wasn't just a pretty sight. It was a powerful signal. It told them the sun was beginning its journey back, promising longer days and the eventual return of the growing season. This alignment transformed their city into a massive, functioning calendar. But who was responsible for this celestial timekeeping? The priests. They were the scientists and scholars of their day. They would climb to the tops of the highest pyramids, using them as observatories. From these elevated positions, they had an unobstructed view of the horizon. Night after night, they would meticulously track the movements of the sun, the moon, and the stars. They would have used simple but effective tools, perhaps stone markers or posts, to chart the positions of celestial bodies. They paid close attention to constellations, like the Pleiades, which are known in the Andes as the Kelka, or storehouse. The appearance or disappearance of these star clusters from the night sky was a vital indicator. When the Pleiades appeared at a certain time, it signaled the beginning of the harvest season, time to gather the crops. Its later disappearance would signal the time for planting. These observations were not just for agriculture. They governed every aspect of Caral society. The astronomical calendar dictated when to perform important religious ceremonies, when to begin major construction projects, and even when to trade with neighboring communities. The sky was their guide, their rulebook, and their source of divine knowledge. So, how did they record this information? Well, Caral had no writing system as we know it. They used something called quipus. These were complex arrangements of knotted strings. We know the Incas used quipus for accounting and recording histories, and evidence of quipu use has been found in Caral, making them the oldest known examples in the Andes. It's highly likely that the priests of Caral used these knotted cords to record their astronomical observations. Each knot, its type, its position, and the color of the string could have represented a specific celestial event, a date, or a quantity of crops to be planted. The quipu was their database, a tangible record of cosmic time. The circular plazas also played a key role. These sunken courts are a unique feature of Caral architecture. Many archaeologists believe they were ceremonial spaces, but also astronomical observatories. Standing in the center, the circular walls would have created a perfect 360-degree horizon. This would allow priests to precisely track the rising and setting points of stars and the sun throughout the year. The entrances to these plazas often align with solstice or equinox points. Imagine a religious ceremony taking place in one of these plazas. As the sun rises on the solstice, its first rays would stream directly through the entrance, illuminating the central altar or a specific monolith. This would be a moment of immense power, a visible confirmation of the connection between the earthly and the divine, reinforcing the priest's authority and the cosmic order. This deep understanding of the cosmos was essential for survival in the challenging environment of the Supe Valley. The river was their lifeline, but its flow was seasonal. Knowing exactly when the rains would come in the highlands to feed the river, and when the dry season would begin, was a matter of life and death. The calendar, derived from the stars, allowed them to manage their water resources, plan their agricultural cycle of cotton and gourds, and ensure they had enough food to support Tamanda, a large population and ambitious building projects. Their astronomical knowledge wasn't an abstract pursuit. It was the most practical science they had. It's amazing to think that 5,000 years ago, a civilization in the Americas was developing a sophisticated calendar system based on precise astronomical observation. The legacy of Caral's skywatchers is etched into the very layout of their city. The pyramids and plazas are not just ruins. They are a testament to a society deeply connected to the universe. They remind us that for much of human history, the sky was not a distant, empty space, but a living, breathing entity that guided our ancestors' hands and shaped their world. The Caral civilization eventually declined, but the knowledge was not entirely lost. It was passed down through generations, influencing later cultures in the Andes, including the famous Inca Empire, who were also renowned for their own advanced astronomy and calendar systems. The seeds of that great Inca knowledge were sown right here, in the ancient city of Caral. So the next time you look at the stars, remember the priests of Caral standing atop their pyramids, reading the celestial story written across the night. They prove that a deep desire to understand our place in the cosmos is one of the oldest human endeavors. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. If you found this fascinating, please give this video a like and subscribe for more explorations into the ancient world. Let me know in the comments what other aspects of Caral you'd like to learn about. See you in the next chapter. Ever wondered what it was like to wake up 5,000 years ago in the oldest city in the Americas? Let's travel back in time to Caral, a city that thrived in ancient Peru long before the Incas, long before even the Great Pyramids of Giza were completed. Forget what you think you know about ancient cities. Caral was different. It wasn't built for war. There were no walls, no fortifications, no signs of battle. Instead, it was a city built for community, for music, and for a deep connection with the cosmos. Imagine the first light of dawn spilling over the arid mountains, painting the Supe Valley in shades of gold and rose. The air is cool and crisp. From the humble homes, smoke begins to curl into the sky. These weren't grand palaces for everyone, but functional, well-organized, domestic units. Most people lived in clusters of single-story rooms made from wattle and daub, a lattice of wooden sticks and reeds plastered with clay. The floors were smooth, packed earth, sometimes covered with woven reed mats. Inside one of these homes, a family begins their day. The hearth, a simple clay-lined pit, is the center of the household. A woman might be tending to the fire, using stones heated directly in the flames to cook their morning meal. This technique, a kind of ancient pressure cooker, was incredibly efficient. What was on the menu? The riches of the valley and the nearby Pacific Ocean. The people of Caral were master agricultors. Their diet was surprisingly diverse. They grew cotton, beans, squash, and sweet potatoes in the fertile river valley. From the coast, a mere 23 kilometers away, came a steady supply of seafood. Anchovies and sardines were staples, often dried and salted for preservation. Larger fish, mussels, and clams added variety to their meals. So a typical breakfast might be a hearty stew of beans and squash, perhaps with some dried fish for protein and flavor. As the sun climbs higher, the city comes alive. The sounds are not of clashing swords, but of daily life and industry. You'd hear the rhythmic thump-thump of someone grinding grains on a stone metate. You'd hear the soft chatter of neighbors and the laughter of children playing in the open spaces between housing complexes. One of the most important activities was weaving. Caral's white and colored cotton was a major commodity. Women, and perhaps men too, would sit outside their homes, spinning raw cotton into fine thread using small, weighted spindles. Then, on simple backstrap looms, they would weave this thread into cloth for clothing, fishing nets, and intricate bags called shikra. These bags, made from reed fibers, were a foundational technology for their incredible architecture. They would fill these shikros with stones and use them as foundational fill for their monumental pyramids, a testament to their engineering genius. Let's walk through the residential sectors. The city wasn't a chaotic jumble of houses. It was organized. Archaeologists have identified different residential sets or complexes, suggesting that extended families or clans lived together. These complexes often had their own small courtyards and storage areas. Some even had their own small ceremonial platforms, suggesting that religious and community life wasn't just confined to the grand pyramids, but was woven into the very fabric of their homes. This organization points to a society with clear social structures, but one where the community was the core unit. Everyone had a role to play. Down by the Supe River, another group is busy. They are gathering totara reeds, a vital resource. These reeds were used for everything, for the wattle in their walls, for the mats on their floors, for the shikra bags, and even for building small floats for river transport. It was a sustainable, harmonious relationship with their environment. They took what they needed and used it wisely. As midday approaches, the central plaza of Caral would be a hub of activity. This wasn't just an empty space. It was the city's heart. It's here that people from different parts of the city and even from surrounding villages would gather. Imagine a market day, with traders from the highlands exchanging dried potatoes and llama jerky for coastal fish and cotton. The air would be filled with the buzz of negotiation and social exchange. But it was more than just a market. The great sunken circular plazas, a hallmark of Carol's architecture, were stages for community rituals. Music was incredibly important to the people of Carol. Archaeologists have unearthed an astonishing collection of musical instruments. Flutes, beautifully crafted from the bones of condors and pelicans, and trumpets made from deer and llama bones. Imagine the sound. High ethereal notes from the flutes mingling with the deep, resonant calls of the trumpets, echoing across the plaza. These weren't just for entertainment. This music was part of their ceremonies, a way to connect with their gods and with each other. Community-wide rituals would have taken place here, perhaps tied to the agricultural calendar or astronomical events. The leaders, or priests, would guide these ceremonies from the top of the pyramids, but the entire community would participate from the plazas below. It was a shared experience, binding thousands of people together in a common purpose and belief system. What about the children? Like kids everywhere, they learn by watching and doing. A young boy might follow his father to the fields to learn how to manage the irrigation canals that watered their crops. A young girl might sit beside her mother, learning the intricate patterns of weaving. They would have played games, told stories, and grown up with a strong sense of belonging to this remarkable community. There's no evidence of writing, so all knowledge, history, and mythology were passed down orally from one generation to the next, through stories, songs, and ceremonies. As the day winds down, the families gather again in their homes. The evening meal is prepared, and stories of the day are shared. The fires in the hearths cast a warm, flickering glow on the walls. Outside, the sky is a breathtaking spectacle. With no light pollution, the Milky Way would have blazed across the heavens. The people of Carol were keen astronomers. The alignment of their pyramids and plazas with celestial bodies shows they had a deep understanding of the cosmos. For them, the stars weren't just distant points of light. They were part of their world, guiding their rituals and their lives. Looking at the evidence, daily life in Carol seems to have been peaceful and cooperative. Their focus was on agriculture, trade, community building, and a rich, ceremonial life. They channeled their immense energy not into conquest, but into creating a harmonious society and building monuments to their gods and their understanding of the universe. They were innovators, engineers, artists, and astronomers. The rhythm of their lives was dictated by the sun, the river, and the stars. It was a life of hard work, but also of community, music, and celebration. Waking with the sun, working together, gathering in the plazas, and sleeping under a canopy of stars. It's a simple rhythm, a peaceful rhythm of lives long past. And as we stand in the silent ruins of Carol today, we can almost hear the faint echo of their flutes. On the wind, a timeless reminder of this incredible civilization that chose harmony over conflict and community over conquest. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this glimpse into the daily life of Carol fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more explorations into our incredible human story. We'll see you in the next video. Welcome back to our journey through the ancient world. Tonight, we settle in for Chapter 15, Fire Rituals and the Sacred Heart. As we've explored the ruins of ancient temples, one feature consistently draws our attention: the fire pit. These aren't just simple hearths for warmth. They are the very heart of sacred spaces, focal points of profound spiritual significance. Imagine standing within the stone walls of a temple thousands of years ago. The air is cool, the world outside is dark, but here, in the center, a fire burns. This flame was so much more than just a source of heat. It was a powerful, Libyan symbol. Let us delve into what this fire might have represented to the people who tended it with such care. For many, fire was the ultimate symbol of light, a beacon pushing back the physical darkness of night and the spiritual darkness of the unknown. It was a tangible piece of the sun brought down to earth, a source of comfort and protection against the fears that thrived in the shadows. To see the flame was to see hope. To feel its warmth was to feel a sense of security in a world filled with uncertainties. The constant, dancing light was a reminder that even after the deepest night, the day would always return. Fire was also deeply connected to the concept of life itself. Think of the warmth of a living body, the spark of energy that animates us. This vital force was mirrored in the hearth's flame. The fire was seen as a living entity, one that needed to be fed, tended, and respected. Its crackle and pop were like a heartbeat, its steady glow a sign of enduring vitality. In many cultures, the sacred hearth was never allowed to go out, as its extinguishment would signify a terrible omen, the loss of life or the favor of the gods. Keeping the flame alive was a communal responsibility, a way of ensuring the life and prosperity of the entire tribe or city. Beyond light and life, fire was a potent symbol of renewal and purification. The act of burning can be incredibly transformative. It can turn solid wood into fine ash, cleanse impurities, and clear land for new growth. This process was not lost on ancient peoples. Rituals involving fire often centered on purification, both for individuals and the community. By passing through or near a sacred flame, one could be cleansed of transgressions, illness, or negative influences. Annual festivals might involve lighting new fires from a single, pure source, symbolizing a fresh start, a wiping clean of the slate for the year to come. The old was consumed by the flame, making way for the new. Perhaps one of the most mysterious and powerful roles of the sacred fire was as a bridge between worlds, a means of communication with the divine. The smoke, rising from the fire pit, curled and drifted upwards, disappearing into the vastness of the sky. To ancient eyes, this was a direct messenger to the heavens, carrying prayers, offerings, and the very essence of their devotion to the realm of the gods. When they burned precious herbs, grains, or animals as offerings, the transformation into smoke was a way of sending the gift to the deities. The flickering flames themselves were also a source of divination. Priests and priestesses would gaze into the fire, interpreting the shapes, colors, and movements of the flames to decipher messages and predict the future. It was a living oracle, speaking a language of light and shadow. Now, let us imagine one of these ceremonies. As night falls completely over the ancient landscape, the air grows still, and the stars begin to emerge, scattered like diamond dust across a velvet cloth. Inside the temple, the only light comes from the central hearth. The fire has been carefully built, its flames reaching towards the open sky through an aperture in the roof. The community gathers, their faces illuminated by the soft, warm glow. There is a hush, a collective breath held in anticipation. The ceremony is not loud or boisterous. It is a contemplative affair. The priest or priestess approaches the hearth, their movements slow and deliberate. They might begin a low, melodic chant, a sound that harmonizes with the gentle crackle of the burning wood. The words are ancient, passed down through generations, invoking the spirits of nature and the gods of the sky. The congregation listens, their eyes fixed on the dancing flames. The firelight plays across their faces, erasing the sharp lines of the day and softening their expressions. In this arid, sacred space, they are united, bound by the light and the ancient ritual. An offering is made. Perhaps it is a bundle of fragrant herbs, carefully tied together. As it is placed into the fire, a plume of white smoke rises, carrying with it a scent of pine, or sage, or lavender. The fragrance fills the temple, a sensory signal of their devotion ascending to the heavens. The people breathe it in, a communal act of participation in the offering. They watch as the smoke thins and vanishes into the darkness above, carrying their collective hopes and prayers with it. There is a sense of peace, a feeling that they have been heard. The ceremony might continue with a period of quiet reflection. Each person, bathed in the fire's gentle radiance, can look into the flames and find their own meaning. For some, it is a moment to remember ancestors, their spirits perhaps drawn close by the familiar warmth of the hearth. For others, it is a time to let go of worries, casting them into the flames to be consumed and transformed. The fire becomes a mirror for the soul, its constant, shifting movement reflecting the flow of thoughts and emotions. There is no need for words. The shared experience of gazing into the fire is communication enough. As the ritual draws to a close, the flames begin to die down. The priestess might offer a final prayer of thanks, her voice a soft murmur in the quiet temple. The people remain for a while, soaking in the last of the warmth and light. The glowing embers are now the focus, a bed of deep red and orange jewels. They hold the memory of the great fire, a promise of the light that will return with the morning sun. The embers symbolize endurance, the quiet strength that remains even after the passionate energy of the flames has subsided. Slowly, people begin to depart, moving back out into the cool night. But they do not go into complete darkness. Each family might be given a single burning ember, carried carefully in a clay pot, to relight the hearth in their own home. In this way, the sacred fire of the temple is distributed, its sanctity and protection spreading throughout the community. The single flame of the temple becomes many flames, a network of light and warmth connecting every home. This simple act reinforces the idea that the sacred is not just confined to the temple walls, but is a part of everyday life, centered around the hearth in their own dwellings. And as you settle into your own quiet space tonight, you can imagine that legacy. The soft glow of a lamp, the warmth of a blanket. These are the modern echoes of that ancient, sacred heart. It's a connection to a time when a simple fire was the center of the universe, a source of light, life, and a profound connection to the mysteries of existence. Let the gentle memory of that flickering flame guide you into a peaceful and restful sleep. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Follow along for our next chapter, and may your dreams be filled with warmth and light. Welcome back to our journey through time. Today, we're heading to the arid coast of Peru, back to a time over 5,000 years ago, to explore one of the oldest cities in the Americas, Caral. This isn't just a story about ancient ruins. It is a powerful tale of human ingenuity and a masterclass in sustainability that holds incredible lessons for us today. So, grab your virtual explorer's hat, because we're about to uncover the secrets of how an ancient civilization not only survived but thrived in one of the world's most challenging environments. Imagine a vast, dry valley, flanked by the Andes Mountains on one side and the Pacific Ocean on the other. Water is scarce, the land is parched. Yet, right here, the Caral civilization built a thriving metropolis with monumental pyramids, bustling plazas, and a complex society. How did they do it? The answer lies buried in the earth and etched into the landscape. A revolutionary approach to environmental management. The lifeblood of Caral was the Supe River. But this river was a double-edged sword. For most of the year, it was a modest stream. But during the El Niño season, it could become a raging, destructive torrent. The people of Caral didn't just passively accept this reality. They engineered their world around it. Their most brilliant innovation was a series of sophisticated irrigation canals. These weren't just simple ditches. Archaeologists have uncovered a network of channels, some stretching for miles, that were meticulously planned and constructed. These canals did more than just bring water to their crops. They were designed with a deep understanding of the local hydrology. The main canals were built high up on the valley slopes, far from the river's flood-prone banks. This strategic placement ensured that their primary water infrastructure was safe from destructive floods. From these main arteries, smaller, secondary channels branched off, gently sloping downwards to irrigate terraced fields. This system allowed them to precisely control the flow of water, maximizing its use and minimizing waste. It was a marvel of hydraulic engineering that allowed them to cultivate cotton, beans, squash, and other vital crops in the desert. But their genius didn't stop at irrigation. The people of Caral were masters of floodplain management. Instead of fighting the river, they worked with it. They understood that the annual floods, while dangerous, also deposited rich, fertile silt onto the valley floor. So, they developed a system of what we might call managed flooding. In the lower parts of the valley, closer to the river, they practiced a form of flood recession agriculture. They would plant crops in the enriched soil left behind after the floodwaters receded. This dual strategy was incredibly clever. Secure, year-round farming on the irrigated terraces above, and opportunistic, high-yield farming on the floodplain below. This symbiotic relationship with their environment is a stark contrast to many modern approaches, where we often try to dominate and control nature. The Caral civilization built their city to last, not by erecting massive flood walls to fight the river, but by understanding its patterns and integrating them into their way of life. They saw the river not as an enemy, but as a powerful partner. Their pyramids and public buildings were strategically built on higher ground, safe from the water's reach, while their agricultural zones were designed to embrace the river's natural cycles. This brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of Caral-Supe's sustainability: their use of shakras. When excavating the foundations of Carol's massive pyramids, archaeologists found something unexpected: woven reed bags filled with stones. These bags, called shakras, were used as a form of structural fill, but they were much more than just ancient filler material. This technique made their monumental structures incredibly resilient to earthquakes, a common threat in this seismically active region. The flexible shikra bags could absorb and dissipate the energy of a tremor, preventing the rigid stone structures from cracking and collapsing. It was an ingenious, low-tech, and highly effective form of seismic-resistant engineering, thousands of years before modern building codes. The story of Caral is a profound lesson in long-term thinking. They weren't just building for the next season, they were building for generations. Their entire society was organized around principles of balance and reciprocity with the natural world. They understood that their survival depended on the health of the ecosystem. This worldview is reflected in their trade networks as well. Caral was an inland city, but they had strong connections to coastal communities. They traded their agricultural surplus, especially their high-quality cotton, used for making fishing nets, for anchovies, and other marine resources. This created a regional economy based on mutual benefit and specialization, a network of interdependency that strengthened the entire region. So, what can we, in the 21st century, learn from this ancient civilization? As we face our own environmental challenges: water scarcity, climate change, and the need for sustainable food systems, Caral offers a powerful blueprint. First, it teaches us the importance of working with nature, not against it. Instead of purely extractive practices, we can look for ways to create symbiotic systems that are resilient and regenerative. Think about modern concepts like green infrastructure, managed aquifer recharge, and These are modern-day echoes of the principles practiced at Caral. Second, Caral reminds us of the power of local, context-specific solutions. The irrigation systems of the Supe Valley were perfectly adapted to that specific environment. There is no one-size-fits-all solution to sustainability. We need to pay closer attention to local ecosystems, weather patterns, and resources to design solutions that truly fit. Finally, the story of Caral is a testament to the power of collective action and long-term vision. The construction of these canals and pyramids required immense social organization and a shared commitment to a common goal that would benefit not just the living, but future generations. In our often short-sighted world, Caral urges us to think bigger and farther ahead. It shows that sustainability is not a New Age concept. It is an ancient wisdom practiced successfully for centuries. By studying the engineering and environmental savvy of the people of Caral, we aren't just looking at the past. We're finding inspiration and practical knowledge to build a more sustainable future for ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible exploration of ancient wisdom. If you found this journey as fascinating as I did, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into the history that shapes our world. Let me know in the comments what other ancient civilizations you'd like to explore. Until next time, stay curious. Welcome back to our journey through the annals of history. Today, we stand at a somber crossroads in our exploration of the ancient city of Caral. This is Chapter 17, Collapse and Abandonment. We've marveled at its pyramids, we've walked its ceremonial plazas, and we've uncovered the secrets of a society that thrived for over 1,000 years. But now, we must ask the most difficult question of all. What ended Caral's golden age? How did this magnificent city, the cradle of civilization in the Americas, fall silent? The end of Caral wasn't a single, dramatic event. There was no invading army that breached its walls, no cataclysmic volcanic eruption that buried it in ash. The archaeological record tells a different story, a much quieter and perhaps more tragic one. It speaks of a gradual decline, a slow fading of a once vibrant metropolis. Imagine the bustling plazas we've discussed, the sound of music, the voices of thousands of people. Now, picture those sounds slowly diminishing over decades, even centuries, until all that was left was the whisper of the wind through empty structures. The people of Caral didn't vanish overnight. They simply lived. Piece by piece, family by family, They walked away from the city their ancestors had built, abandoning it to the desert sands. So, what could drive an entire population to abandon their home? The primary suspect, supported by a growing body of evidence, is climate change. It's a story that feels hauntingly familiar to us today. For centuries, the Supe Valley was a reliable oasis, fed by rivers carrying meltwater from the Andes. This water was the lifeblood of Carol's agricultural success, allowing them to cultivate cotton, gourds, and a variety of food crops that sustained the city and fueled its trade network. But around 2200 BCE, the climate began to shift. Scientists studying ice cores from Andean glaciers and sediment layers in nearby lakes have pieced together a picture of a prolonged and severe period of environmental turmoil. This wasn't just a bad year or two. We're talking about a multi-generational crisis. The reliable weather patterns that had defined the region for a millennium became erratic. The first major blow was a series of intense El Niño events. For those unfamiliar, El Niño is a climate pattern that warms the surface waters of the eastern Pacific Ocean, drastically altering weather worldwide. For the coast of Peru, this meant torrential rains and catastrophic flooding. Imagine the carefully engineered irrigation canals, the very foundation of Carol's agriculture, being overwhelmed and destroyed by raging floodwaters. Fields of cotton and beans would have been washed away, turning fertile land into a muddy wasteland overnight. The mud brick and stone buildings, so masterfully constructed, would have been battered and weakened by the deluge. The floods would have been devastating, but they were followed by an even more insidious enemy: drought. After the cycle of intense rains, the pendulum swung violently in the other direction. The weather patterns shifted again, and the life-giving rains in the Andes, which fed the rivers of the Supe Valley, failed. The once mighty rivers dwindled to mere trickles. The irrigation canals, even if they could be rebuilt, ran dry. The fields that weren't flooded were now baked and cracked under a relentless sun. The foundation of Carol's economy and food supply was crumbling. For a society so intricately tied to the rhythms of agriculture, this would have been an existential threat. The surpluses that supported the priests, the artisans, and the architects vanished. This environmental crisis would have triggered a cascade of social and political problems. The leaders and priests of Caral, whose authority was likely tied to their perceived ability to mediate with the gods and ensure the stability of the natural world, would have found their power eroding. How can you command respect when the rituals and ceremonies you perform no longer bring the rains or quell the floods? The social contract that held Carol together, the agreement where farmers provided tribute in exchange for spiritual guidance and societal order, would have been broken. Discontent and disillusionment would have spread through the population. When your children are hungry and the fields are barren, faith in the old ways begins to waver. This brings us to another potential factor: shifting trade and the rise of new centers of power. Carol wasn't an island. It was the hub of a complex network of trade that stretched from the Amazon rainforest to the Pacific coast. But as Carol's agricultural output declined, it had less to offer its trading partners. The prized cotton, the very commodity that gave Carol its economic leverage, became scarce. At the same time, other settlements in different valleys, perhaps those less affected by the localized effects of the drought, may have begun to rise in prominence. People may have seen opportunities elsewhere, in new communities that were better adapted to the changing climate or had access to different resources. The allure of Caral, the great religious and economic capital, began to fade. Why stay in a city of diminishing returns when new opportunities, and more importantly, food and water, could be found just a few valleys over? It's this combination of factors that likely sealed Carol's fate. It wasn't one single catastrophe, but a slow, grinding process. First, the terrifying floods, then the soul-crushing droughts. This environmental instability crippled their agriculture, which in turn led to social unrest and a crisis of faith in their leaders. Finally, as the city weakened from within, its regional influence waned, and its people began to look for better lives elsewhere. The abandonment of Caral was a pragmatic decision, born of desperation and the instinct for survival. It was a choice between clinging to the glories of the past in a dying city or seeking a new future in a more hospitable land. The silence that fell over Caral around 1800 BCE is a profound lesson from history. It teaches us about the fragility of even the most advanced civilizations and their deep dependence on a stable environment. The people of Caral weren't conquered by an enemy they could see. They were defeated by changes in the world around them, forces they could neither understand nor control. They built pyramids to touch the heavens, but in the end, they were at the mercy of the earth, the rain, and the sun. The empty plazas and silent pyramids are not just ruins. They are a 4,000-year-old warning, a testament to the fact that when the climate changes, civilizations must either adapt or face collapse. As we conclude our exploration of the great city of Cairo, we are left with a sense of awe and melancholy. Awe at what its people achieved, and melancholy for what was lost. They were pioneers, innovators, and the architects of a truly remarkable society. Their story is a crucial chapter in the grand narrative of human history, and its final pages serve as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and the natural world. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey back in time to the lost city of Caral. I hope you've enjoyed this series as much as I have. If you found this fascinating, please like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical adventure. See you next time. For thousands of years, the arid valleys of Peru held a monumental secret. A civilization, as old as the Egyptian pyramids, lay sleeping beneath the sands, its story erased from human memory. For centuries, the massive mounds dotting the landscape were dismissed as natural hills. No one suspected they were hiding one of the greatest archaeological treasures of the Americas. This is the story of how a lost world was found, and how science rewrote the first chapter of American civilization. This is the rediscovery of Caral. Our story begins not in the distant past, but in the 1990s, with a determined Peruvian archaeologist named Ruth Shady. For decades, archaeologists had noticed the strange, massive mounds in the Supe Valley, but they were largely ignored. The consensus at the time was that complex societies in the Americas only emerged much later, around 1500 BC, and always with the invention of pottery as a key driver. These mounds had no pottery fragments on the surface, so they were considered geologically insignificant. But Ruth Shady saw something more. She saw patterns, alignments, and a scale that hinted at human design. Driven by an intuition that went against all academic dogma, she decided to investigate. Her colleagues were skeptical. Funding was scarce. The area was remote and considered dangerous. But Shady persisted, convinced she was on the verge of something extraordinary. In 1994, she began her first formal excavations at the site now known as the sacred city of Caral. What she and her team started to unearth was simply staggering. This wasn't just a small settlement. It was a massive urban complex, covering over 150 acres. They uncovered 6 large platform mounds, often called pyramids, with circular plazas, grand staircases, and residential complexes. The largest pyramid, the Pyramid Mayor, stands over 60 feet tall and is nearly 5 football fields long at its base. The sheer scale and architectural sophistication were mind-boggling. This was clearly the work of a highly organized, populous society with advanced engineering skills. But one crucial piece of the puzzle was still missing: its age. The lack of pottery made traditional dating methods impossible. To the outside world, Shady's claims were still just that, claims. She needed definitive, scientific proof. This is where a revolutionary technology enters our story. Radiocarbon dating. Shady's team carefully excavated organic materials from deep within the structures. They found woven reed bags, called chakras, which were filled with stones and used as the foundational fill for the massive pyramids. These humble bags held the key. They were made from plant fibers, which meant they could be dated. In 1999, Shady sent samples to a lab for analysis. The archaeological world held its breath. When the results came back, they were seismic. The dates clustered around 2600 BC. Let that sink in. The city of Cairo was flourishing at the same time as the Great Pyramid of Giza was being built in Egypt. It was 1,000 years older than the Olmecs, the previously thought mother culture of Mesoamerica. It was a full-blown civilization, complete with monumental architecture, a complex social hierarchy, and large-scale agriculture, all thriving in the Americas, while Stonehenge was still under construction in Europe. This discovery didn't just add a new chapter to American prehistory. It forced a complete rewrite of the book. The conventional wisdom that pottery and warfare were necessary precursors to civilization was shattered. Caral had no pottery. It also had no defensive walls, no weapons, and no signs of conflict. Its development seemed to be fueled not by war, but by trade, agriculture, and a shared, powerful ideology expressed through music and ceremony. Archaeologists found 32 flutes made from condor and pelican bones, and 37 cornets made from deer and llama bones, all exquisitely crafted and found in a specific arrangement. This suggests music played a central role in their social and religious life. Carol's economy was based on cotton and fishing. They grew cotton inland and traded it with coastal communities for fish and shellfish. This network of exchange, a peaceful and mutually beneficial system, appears to be the engine that drove their society's growth. Carol proves that there are multiple pathways to civilization, and the American model was profoundly different from the Old World. The rediscovery of Caral carries a deep emotional resonance. Imagine a civilization as grand as ancient Egypt, completely forgotten for 5 millennia. It wasn't destroyed by invaders or wiped out by a cataclysm. It seems its people simply ... left. As the climate changed, the civilization faded, and its magnificent cities were reclaimed by the desert sand. Its memory vanished from the collective consciousness of its successors, including the Inca. For thousands of years, people lived and died in the Supe Valley, walking over the graves of their ancestors without ever knowing the incredible world that lay just beneath their feet. The rediscovery is like finding a lost relative you never knew you had, a connection to a past that is both profoundly ancient and deeply human. It gives modern Peruvians, and indeed all of us, a new, deeper timeline for our shared human story in the Americas. Ruth Chadier's work is a testament to the power of scientific curiosity and perseverance against the odds. She didn't just uncover stone structures. She resurrected a forgotten world. She gave a voice to a people who had been silent for 5,000 years. Standing in the central plaza of Caral today, you can almost hear the echoes of ancient flutes carried on the desert wind. You can feel the weight of history, not as a collection of dusty artifacts, but as a living, breathing connection to our most distant ancestors. The story of Caral is not just about pyramids and dates. It's about rediscovering a part of ourselves. It reminds us that history is not a static, finished story. It's a dynamic, ongoing investigation, with new discoveries waiting just beneath the surface, ready to change everything we thought we knew. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you do UNT. Miss our next exploration into the mysteries of the past. See you next time. Have you ever wondered where the incredible achievements of the Inca Empire came from? It's a story that starts much, much earlier, in a place that rewrote history. Welcome back to our journey through ancient history. Today, we're diving into the profound legacy of Caral, the oldest city in the Americas, and exploring how its innovations echoed for thousands of years, shaping the very foundation of Andean civilization. Imagine a city thriving over 5,000 years ago, a contemporary of the Egyptian pyramids and Mesopotamians. This wasn't just a settlement. It was a cradle of civilization. Caral, located in the Supe Valley of Peru, was a bustling metropolis without pottery, without weapons, and seemingly without war. So, what was its secret? And how did its ideas become the blueprint for empires to come? Let's unravel the threads that connect Caral to the magnificent cultures that followed. First, let's talk about architecture. The most striking features of Caral are its massive platform mounds and sunken circular plazas. These weren't just buildings. They were statements. The tiered pyramids, built with stone and earth, were public spaces for ceremonies and administration. Fast forward 1,000 years to the Chavin culture. Look at their ceremonial center, Chavin de Huantar. You see the same architectural DNA. Large platforms and a sunken, circular plaza. It's a direct inheritance, a sacred design passed down through generations, proving that the way Caral organized its spiritual and public life became a fundamental Andean tradition. This architectural style didn't stop with Chavin. The Mocha, known for their elaborate adobe pyramids, like the Huaca del Sol and Huaca de la Luna, continued this practice of building monumental ceremonial centers. And, of course, the Inca. the masters of stone, perfected this concept with their temples and administrative hubs in cities like Cusco. The idea of a sacred, central space, a place where the human and divine worlds met, was born in Caral. It's a concept that proved so powerful it lasted for over 4 millennia. But Caral's influence wasn't just set in stone. It was also woven into the fabric of their economy. Caral was a major trade hub, situated in a desert valley. Its people couldn't grow everything they needed. So, they exchanged their sophisticated cotton textiles and dried fish with communities from the highlands and the Amazon. This created a complex network of interdependence, a system of reciprocity that became a hallmark of Andean economics. This model of a vertically integrated economy, connecting the coast, the mountains, and the jungle, was the engine of later Andean societies. The Chavan culture spread its influence along these very trade routes. The Mocha managed vast irrigation and trade networks. And the Inca, they perfected this system on an imperial scale. Their famous road network wasn't just for moving armies. It was the artery of a massive state-controlled economy, ensuring goods flowed from every corner of their vast empire. A concept that had its humble beginnings in the markets and trade agreements of Caral. Now, let's get into one of the most fascinating mysteries. Information management. The Inca are famous for their quipus, the intricate knotted cords used to record data, from census numbers to historical narratives. For a long time, we thought this was a unique Inca invention, but Caral turns that idea on its head. Archaeologists in Caral have discovered what they call proto-quipus. These are knotted cotton strings, found in contexts that suggest they were used for... These artifacts, predating the Inca by more than 3,000 years, they suggest that the fundamental concept of using knots and strings to store information is an ancient Andean invention, originating in Caral. While we can't yet decipher these early versions, their existence shows that the need to manage a complex society to track resources, record events, and organize labor led to one of the most unique data systems in human history. The Inca quipu wasn't a sudden stroke of genius. It was the culmination of a tradition that had been developing for millennia, starting with the very first administrators of Caral. Finally, we have the realm of ritual and belief. Caral's sunken plazas were stages for communal ceremonies. We've found evidence of offerings, including musical instruments like flutes made from condor and pelican bones, and figurines. These rituals were likely tied to the agricultural calendar, celestial events, and the worship of sacred mountains and water. They were about maintaining cosmic balance, or what the later Inca would call Ani, a principle of reciprocity with the gods and the community. This focus on communal ritual and celestial observation is another golden thread. The Chavan religion, with its powerful jaguar and serpent deities, spread through a shared ritualistic experience. The Moche performed elaborate ceremonies, often depicted on their pottery, and the Inca state religion, centered on the sun god Inti, involved massive public festivals that unified the empire. The idea that religion and ritual were not private affairs, but public, state-sponsored events designed to ensure the well-being of the entire society. That idea was practiced and perfected in Caral. So, when we look at the incredible tapestry of Andean civilization, we can see the threads of Caral woven throughout. Its architectural blueprint for sacred spaces, its economic model of interconnected trade, its pioneering system of data recording, and its tradition of communal ritual, all became fundamental pillars of the cultures that followed. Chabin, Moche, Wari, Tiwanaku, and ultimately the Inca Empire were not isolated phenomena. They were heirs to a legacy, building upon a foundation laid 5,000 years ago in the arid Supe Valley. Caral truly represents the dawn of Andean civilization. It was a place of astonishing innovation, a peaceful society that chose collaboration over conflict, and whose ideas were so powerful and so effective that they echoed through the Andes for thousands of years. It reminds us that the greatest empires often stand on the shoulders of forgotten giants. The story of the Andes didn't begin with the Inca. It began with the visionary people of Caral. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this journey back in time as fascinating as I did, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next exploration into the ancient world. Let me know in the comments which part of Caral's legacy you find most incredible. See you next time. The sun dips low over the Supe Valley, painting the desert in hues of gold and rose. Here, in the heart of Peru, lies a city that has outlasted empires, a testament to a time before the Incas, before even the written word. This is Caral, and as our journey comes to an end, we find ourselves in a place of profound silence and deep reflection. Imagine standing here 5,000 years ago. The air, instead of being still, would have been filled with the sounds of life. Music from flutes carved from condor and pelican bones, the murmur of thousands of people, the rhythmic work of builders and farmers. This wasn't just a collection of structures. It was a vibrant metropolis, a cradle of civilization in the Americas. The people of Caral were astronomers, engineers, and artists. They built not with the sword, but with a shared vision, a collective will to create something lasting. As we walk through the vast central plaza, the sheer scale of their ambition is humbling. Look at the Great Pyramid, Piramide. Major neat. Not just a pile of rocks, it's a carefully constructed monument, aligned with the stars. Each stone was carried by hand, each fiber bag filled with rocks to create the shikra walls, an ingenious form of seismic-resistant engineering. They understood their environment. They knew the earth could tremble, and they built to endure. What's most striking about Caral is what we don't find. There are no fortifications, no weapons of war, no evidence of conquest. Instead, we find musical instruments, intricate textiles, and evidence of extensive trade. They exchanged cotton and fish with communities in the Andes and the Amazon. Their power was not military, but cultural and economic. They built a society based on cooperation and commerce, a peaceful hub that influenced a continent for over a millennium. Think about the concept of time here. We measure our lives in days and years. Here, time is measured in millennia. These pyramids have watched the sun rise and set over 1,000,000 times. They have felt the cool desert nights and the searing daytime heat, standing as silent witnesses to the long, slow story of humanity. When the pharaohs were building their first great pyramids in Egypt, the people of Caral were building theirs. While civilizations rose and fell across the globe, Caral thrived in its desert oasis. And then, as mysteriously as it began, it ended. Around 1800 BC, the climate changed. A prolonged drought made life in the valley unsustainable. The people of Caral didn't vanish in a cataclysm. They simply moved on, dispersing into smaller communities, carrying their knowledge and culture with them. They left their great city to the wind and the sand. And for nearly 4,000 years, Caral slept, its story forgotten, buried beneath the desert floor. It wasn't until the 1990s that its true significance was uncovered by the archaeologist Ruth Shady and her team. It was a rediscovery that rewrote the history books. We learned that complex civilization in the Americas was far older than anyone had imagined. Caral pushed back the timeline by 1,000 years, revealing a story of human ingenuity that had been lost to time. Today, visiting Caral is a unique experience. It's not a crowded tourist trap. There's a quiet reverence here. You walk gently among these ancient stones, the only sounds being the whisper of the wind and the crunch of your own footsteps on the dry earth. It invites you to slow down, to listen, to feel the weight of history under your feet. You look at the circular plazas, sunk into the ground, and you can almost hear the echoes of ancient ceremonies. You can almost see the shadows of people who lived, loved, and dreamed right where you stand. What does a place like Caral teach us? It teaches us about resilience. It teaches us that civilization can be built on peace and creativity. It reminds us that our own time on this planet is just a fleeting moment in a much grander story. The people who built this city had no idea that we would be here, 5 millennia later, marveling at their work. They were simply building a home, creating a world for their children and their children's children. This city is a bridge across time. It connects us to our most ancient ancestors, to the very dawn of urban life. It shows us that the desire to build, to create, to understand our place in the cosmos is a fundamental part of the human spirit. The eternal silence of Caral isn't an empty silence. It's filled with the stories of a people who, against all odds, carved a magnificent civilization out of the desert. Their voices may be gone, but their legacy is etched into these stones, waiting for us to listen. As we leave the Supe Valley and the sun finally disappears below the horizon, we carry a piece of Caral with us. Not a souvenir, but a feelinga, deep respect for the past, and a renewed sense of wonder at the incredible journey of humanity. The story of Caral is a quiet one, but it's one of the most powerful stories ever told. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through history. If these stories of our shared past move you as much as they move us, please consider subscribing to our channel. There are countless more tales waiting to be unearthed. Until next time, keep exploring.